Welcome to the Chasing Spirituality podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so excited that you're joining me today. Each episode is full of heartfelt and expansive content that will really help you expand your consciousness and grow as a person. I created this podcast because I wanted to share my own personal experiences on my spiritual journey, but I also wanted to meet others and have them share what they've been through and how they've gotten to where they are today. If you haven't done so already, it would really mean a lot to me if you could rate and review the podcast. This really helps the podcast grow and reach more people, but it also allows me to get more guests on the show. Now on to today's topic. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode, and I am so excited that you are here. Today I want to talk about choosing people and events and things and situations that are good for you, and not just good for you, but that value you and understand you and want what is best for you. Sometimes we get caught up in what we're used to. We get caught up in what is normal and what the usual is, that we don't always notice when something is no longer serving us, or when something is no longer good for us. We don't notice when we're being mistreated. We don't notice when we're being abused. We don't notice when there is something else going on that is really affecting our overall well-being or our overall worth and what we deserve. So I want to talk about this because we can get really attached. We become attached to certain people, to certain friends, to certain groups, to certain jobs, to certain family members, to all kinds of things. We become attached because we develop this story. And this story in our head, our ego attaches to it and wants us to continue to tell this story and to continue to live by it. And it makes it hard for us to really relinquish and let go of what no longer serves us. And it really will stunt your growth. Everyone is guilty of this because everyone has an ego. So it really it doesn't mean that you aren't growing. It doesn't mean that you are incapable of growing if you are still stuck to old stories and old paradigms. It just means that maybe you need some more awareness around some of the things that you're still clinging to, especially if you know that they're not truly what is best for you. And even if you're not sure, but you may have some ideas that, maybe a certain person isn't really who they say that they are, or you have a feeling that someone is lying to you, or you have even evidence and proof that someone has repeatedly shown you that they're not good for you and that they're not going to treat you well. These are signs that you really need to pay attention to. And if you find yourself continuously going back to these people that hurt you, or associating with these people that are no longer good for you, or that don't really live the same way that you live, that don't respect you, that don't validate you and give you what you truly feel like you deserve in whatever kind of relationship that is, then more than likely your ego is holding on to something, to some kind of story that you're having a hard time of letting go of. So the best way to get through this is to start asking yourself questions when you notice yourself feeling frustrated or aggravated or angry or depressed, or like you're not getting what you need, when you're feeling like someone is mistreating you. Start asking yourself questions, first of all, to validate why you feel this way. What is it that this person did? What is it that this situation created? What is it in this particular circumstance that is making you feel frustrated? or angry or upset or whatever the emotion is. Try to find out what exactly it is that triggered it. What about the situation? What about what was said? What about what was done? And ask yourself honestly, like, what about it makes you feel that way? Do you feel angry because this person did not call you back and they said that they would? Do you feel frustrated because, you're due for a promotion at work and they still have not, said, done what they promised they were going to do? Everyone has a story and everyone has a situation and everyone has something that frustrates them and angers them. So forget the toxic positivity, really let yourself feel into this emotion and whatever it is. And when you feel it, start asking yourself these questions. Why? Why do I feel this way? Why am I angry? Why am I frustrated? Because when you have these emotions, most of the time, there's something that your body is trying to make you aware of. Your body is sending you clues. Your body is sending you hints and reminders. Your intuition is pinging. There are all these things that your body is trying to make you aware of. Your ego will then sometimes blind you from what the real answer is, because the ego's job is to protect you. The ego isn't bad. I don't want you to feel like you have to, starve the ego, but you have to learn to listen to the ego and the intuition together. So your ego will throw out, false beliefs and false information to kind of steer you away from what the true root of the issue is. But if you can pay attention to the signs from both and really ask yourself, what is the deep root of my distress? What is truly causing it? Sometimes it's simply just a limiting belief. It's a limiting belief that you are stuck on, a limiting belief that you're not good enough or that you don't deserve certain things. And what's happening is your soul is out of alignment with that belief. So your soul is reacting. Your soul is saying, hey, we do deserve these things. We do deserve love. We are worthy. But your ego is trying to protect you because more than likely you experienced some kind of hurt. You experienced someone or something happen that made you feel like you didn't deserve enough or made you feel like you weren't worthy. So in order to protect you from feeling that horrible pain again, your ego starts to throw out all of these things in order to protect you, right? Okay, well, the ego doesn't really know what's threatening and what isn't threatening. The ego is not a really good judge of most situations. So you have to learn to, okay, ego, like, I hear you. I hear that, we feel unsafe, that we feel unsettled, but we're fine. Like, we're safe. We need to dive a little bit deeper into this problem. And then once you start doing that, you can bring your intuition back in. Once you can kind of calm the ego, you can bring the intuition back in and start asking your intuition, what's really going on here? What was it that I picked up on that made me feel out of alignment? So our ego does cling to these stories and these limiting beliefs that we have in order to protect us. But when you can realize that that's all the ego's function, you can start to realize what it is that your ego is trying to protect you from and what it is that you're truly scared of.
But it's also helping
You may be afraid to let go of someone because you feel like you will never find someone else. You may be afraid to let go of a friendship because you grew up thinking that your needs and your desires and your wants were not important enough to ever be met. So you're used to constantly putting others before you and never asking for anything in return. These kind of things, it just takes a lot of digging and a lot of work and a lot of effort. And most of the time, even if you get to the root cause, if you get to a reason, it'll definitely help you push through whatever obstacle you're currently facing, but there's always layers to it. So, a lot of the shadow work that I've done, it's starting to come back up because there's more to it than what I originally dug up. And it's really just a part of life. It's a part of growth. And in my opinion, it's what we're meant to do. We're meant to grow. We are meant to evolve and to change and continue healing, one step at a time, and we'll never be done. Because there's always more to uncover, and there's always more beneath the surface. The next thing I want to talk about is the other person or the people, the situation, however it has presented itself to you. It's so easy for us to play the victim and blame others and to point our fingers at other people and become angry. Now, I want to start off by saying it is okay to be angry. It is okay to be angry at people. It is okay to be angry at someone for doing something to you. It is what you do with that anger that becomes more challenging, or becomes, whether it is toxic or healthy. Anger itself is a valid emotion, and everyone deserves to feel angry. Everyone deserves to feel every emotion, but it is how you act with those emotions that makes a difference between someone who is on this journey of self-growth and betterment, and someone who just has no respect for anyone else and their boundaries. So I want to give you permission to be angry if you're being mistreated. I want to give you permission to be angry at someone who did not treat you the way that you deserve, or did not hold up their end of the bargain, or did not do what they were supposed to do, whether they believe that or not. And so this is the other piece to that. I also want to point out that your perspective is different from everyone else's perspective. So a lot of times when we find ourselves in these kind of situations where we're around certain people or certain situations and things that no longer serve us, is we can fall into victimhood, and we can start the blame game. But we also want to argue our point with the person that hurt us or people involved. And we want to argue our point so that we can then conform them to our side. We want to convert their opinion and convert their beliefs to our own. We want to, we want to force them to see where we're coming from. It gets so frustrating. You're like, oh my gosh, like, how do you not see it from this perspective? How do you not see it from my point of view? Like, you did this, I did this, and you still don't see that I'm right. And it's so easy to fall into that trap, and I'm by no means innocent of it. However, I want to point out that there is absolutely nothing that you can say or do that will ever convince someone who is hard-headed and has no desire to see your side. Like, there's nothing. There is absolutely nothing that you can say or do to convince them. So, before you fall into that trap of trying to force the other person to take your side and to see where you're coming from, I want to go ahead and save you time and save you energy and save your sanity by telling you, you do not need validation from anyone else to believe what you believe. Okay? If you believe that you did right, and you believe that you did everything that you absolutely could, and you believed that you were wronged, you believe that someone else wronged you, you believe that you were mistreated, you believe that whatever it is, you don't need anyone on your side. You don't need anyone to say, okay, I believe you, or yes, you're correct, or yes, you are right. You don't need that, because the only person and the only opinion that matters is your own. So, don't get caught in that game of trying to convert that person, trying to make them understand where you're coming from, because it's really just, at the end of the day, it's going to be a waste of time, especially if you know that there's no way they're even going to attempt to see it from your point of view. Now, if you're talking to someone that you're very, very close to, someone that you have a really good relationship, and you know that they're open-minded, you know that they're open to deep discussions, they're, willing to have these kind of conversations that can be, confrontational, then by all means, definitely have that conversation. But again, don't go into it with the idea or with the goal of trying to prove your point. And you should always feel like you have the right to express how you feel. Whether you believe that that person is going to understand or not. In fact, you should express how you feel, because when we express our feelings, it's going to really help us accept them ourselves. Just don't go into it expecting the other person to agree with you. That's where our ego can kind of twist it and make us feel like we have to fight for what we feel, and then we become even more angry and we become more upset because we want so badly for someone to understand where we're coming from. So, definitely express yourself. In fact, I'm a firm believer that you really don't have a right to be extremely upset or angry at someone unless they know how you feel. There are obviously certain circumstances and situations where you can't express to someone how you feel and you can't tell them, and that's okay. I'm not talking about those circumstances. And then in other situations, there will be times where you don't feel that it's worth expressing how you feel. You just know that you deserve more and that you're not going to tolerate this from, this person or this circumstance. And that is where, my friend, boundaries come into play. Boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. I talk about these all the time on the show, and you should know by now how important boundaries are. When it comes to dealing with your feelings and your well-being and what you want and what you deserve, boundaries are so important. You cannot expect others to just absolutely know how to treat you. You cannot expect others to know what it is that you want, to know what it is that, you desire and how you want to be treated, unless you have had these kinds of conversations with them before, where you have made statements and set boundaries with them before. So, if you're dealing with a situation with someone that you're in some kind of relationship with, and you find that you are feeling mistreated, you find that you are not getting what it is that you need from this relationship, it is up to you to communicate that, but also to set clear boundaries on what it is and what it is not that you will tolerate. And then moving forward, then you can say, hey, I explained to you that this is what I need. I explained to you that this is how things were going to be. I explained to you that this is where I draw my line, and you didn't listen. You didn't respect me. You didn't respect my boundaries, or whatever the circumstance may be, even with a job or with a different kind of circumstance. If it's something at work and you've clearly told your boss that you're not working overtime, you're not staying late, you want more vacation time, you want more paid time off, whatever it is, you have to express to your boss when things are not being met. When your needs and your expectations are not being met, you have to express that. Otherwise, you're going to keep getting trampled over. People are going to continue to take advantage of you. They're going to continue to run over you because you are allowing it at this point. You are allowing people to mistreat you. And if you find that the conversations to be had around your boundaries and around your expectations isn't worth to be had, that's okay too. You may decide it's not worth to have that conversation with your boss because you don't want to work for a company or for a person that overworks their employees, period, point blank. Or you may find yourself in a situation with someone that you're not very close to and they disrespected you or mistreated you in some way, and you're just like, all right, then I'm just done with this this relationship or whatever it even was, you just won't associate with them anymore. You won't
talking about man, boobs, and poop. Thank you.
You won't talk to them anymore. They won't be part of your inner circle or whatever the relationship was. You always have the choice to decide where you're going to put your energy. And sometimes we decide that it's not worth our time and it's not worth our energy, that we just get to cut it off. We get to move forward without notice, without explanation. And I believe that sometimes that's okay too. I'm not moving into the aspect of ghosting and that kind of thing, because I really have some mixed views on that it's really just not appropriate for the content of this episode. That's a completely different discussion. But for the most part, I feel like you do have the right, to know what your limits are and what your boundaries are, and just to say, all right, adios. But back to the original point of this episode is the story. Okay, so taking all of this into consideration, taking in the relationship, the situation, the scenario, what boundaries you've had, what limiting beliefs you may have around this particular situation, this particular event. Don't let your ego cling to the story. Don't let your ego convince you that you need this person, or you need this job, or you need this event or this circumstance to be happy. Don't let your ego convince you, especially if you are a woman, because women have been silenced so much in this society that we live in. So don't let your ego convince you that you don't have a voice. In fact, that's the easiest way that you're going to block your throat chakra, is by not speaking up, by not saying how you feel, by not speaking your truth. You have every right to feel the way that you feel, whether someone or anyone agrees. But I promise, you probably have a friend or two that you could vent to, and they could at least see your point of view. They could at least see your side. So if you need to vent, I suggest that you vent to those people in your life and you leave the arguments alone, especially if you know it's someone that's not even going to attempt to see your point of view, or someone that you just don't feel like they're worth your time or your energy. Just have some self-respect and know that however you feel is validated, because you feel that way. And that's all that you need. This is for anyone who resonates with this podcast and is interested in more spiritual content. Have you checked out the Chasing Spirituality community? Well, you can find out more on my website, chasingspirituality.com. But this community is a wonderful place for you to meet like-minded people, but also be supported in your own authentic expression as you go on your spiritual journey and you learn more about fascinating topics, as well as exercise your own spiritual and intuitive gifts. We have lives every single month. There's meditation videos and courses and tons of extra bonus content and videos. So if you're interested in more content, please go check that out. We would love to have you.